Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. We are going to be talking about a small Japanese developer today, but it is one that I have developed a soft spot for, and they have a large library of games that are available on the Nintendo Switch now, including one that has just released within the last week or so. That developer's name is Rideon Japan. Now I used to think it was pronounced Rideon because in English the name is always condensed into the one word for some reason. But over in Japan, there's a definite space between ride and on, so I am assuming that it is actually meant to be pronounced Rideon. Rideon is so small that they don't even have a Wikipedia page. However, the company has been around for quite a while and very prolific. According to its website, they've been in operation since around 2004, and they've been producing games since as far back as the PlayStation 2 era. That same company lists its capital at 6 million yen, which sounds impressive until you realise that it translates to around $75,000 in Australian money. So yes, we are talking about a very small company here, despite how prolific they actually are. The first game of Rideon's that I played was Adventure Bar Story, which was a mobile game released back in 2012. I wasn't a big fan of that game at that time, but the company has grown on me since. And they seem to have settled into a pattern of two particular streams of games that they release. There are the Mercenary Tactics JRPGs, and there's also a series of Atelier-likes that have built on that Adventure Bar Story foundation. I'll start by talking about the Atelier-likes first. So I mentioned at the start of the video that Rideon has just recently released a new title on the Switch. They partnered with Kemco for that, for the localization effort, and that game is called Blacksmith of the Sand Kingdom. You can go and check my review out on digitallydownloaded.net if you'd like. At the time at which I'm recording this, it's the top review on the site, and the basic summary of it is that I quite enjoyed my time with it. It's not the first time that Kemco and Rideon have collaborated on an Atelier-like on the Switch. 2 years ago they worked on a game called Marianian Tavern Story on the Switch as well, which was much the same deal. They're basically very similar games. These Atelier-likes share some common points to them. You run around small environments collecting resources and battling enemies to collect yet more resources. Back in town, you then turn those resources into completed goods, which you can use to either boost up your party with healing items and equipment, solve quests, hand over items that quest givers have asked you to find or make for them, and then also you can sell the items via a simple shop system for money, which you can then use to improve the standing of your shop, get more recipes to create and progress the story. It's all very simple stuff, but there is an efficiency to it that really works to its benefit, I've found over the years. So I love the Atelier series, as I think just about everybody that follows me on this channel knows well. And I am quite partial to these kinds of resource collection and cooking style JRPGs. However, a big drawcard to me with the Atelier series is really the pretty girls, and while I enjoy the gameplay enough, it's not the thing that I come to those games for because I out and out love it. I actually find the process of collecting great quality resources together and then using them to carefully cook up the exact kind of item to be quite an involved process. And while it is great for when I'm in the mood to sit down and play for hours at a time, I think that Atelier lacks pick up and play value. Rideon's take on the genre goes completely the other way, so that it's very simplistic, and so simplistic to the point that I have to put it down after a half hour or so. That's really my limit for any individual play session with the game. But I don't think that's a bad thing, because when I've got a half hour to fill, it fills a gap incredibly well. Now, with that being said, that is the lesser half of the Rideon formula as such. Rideon's better half is the Mercenaries series, of which there are now 5 available on the Nintendo Switch, courtesy of publisher Circle Entertainment. The first release was a 3-pack containing the first 3 games in the series, and since then Circle and Rideon have released 2 standalone titles that have completed the series of 5 Mercenaries games on the Switch. Now, in comparison to some of the other tactics JRPGs that are on the Switch right now, things like God Wars, Disgaea, Fell Seal, the Mercenaries games are quite simplistic in their mechanics. This is particularly felt with the level up and skill systems, which are a little too limited and restricted for their own good. Over the years, though, I have found myself continuing to come back to these games, as simple as they are, because I think the streamlined tactics JRPGs, in terms of being a streamlined tactics JRPG, Rideon actually nails the intent of what they wanted to achieve with these games. So, for example, while the writing won't win any Academy Awards, at the same time there's enough of quality there to cover the basics of character development and provide an overarching plot that's actually interesting and worth playing through. Rideon has also invested in some pretty high quality art, given their budgetary limitations, to represent the characters, and that's particularly true with the most recent Mercenaries titles, and that really helps to set the scene as well. Basically, it is very easy to get into these games and find yourself drawn into the narrative and what they offer as a presentation. From there, you're thrown into the combat, and you quickly find that the battles are efficient, clean, and highly engaging, particularly if you have fond memories for the genre's heyday back on the Game Boy Advance. If you're an oldie like me, you'll probably remember the GBA being a console that had some excellent JRPGs, but it was particularly strong with the tactics JRPG genre, with the likes of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, Tactics Ogre, The Knight of Lodis, Onimusha Tactics, and Rebel Star Tactical Command. These games were all very similar in scope. They were all very much in demand back then, and they were all very compelling little titles. The Mercenaries games, in terms of both their aesthetics and their gameplay structure, feel very much like their kind of lost games from that generation. And so it's perhaps the way that they tap into my nostalgia for the GBA and the tactics games on that console, but I absolutely love them for that. I find that the presentation just nails that aesthetic and tone. So put together, if you look at the two streams of Rideon games, a pretty clear picture emerges of what they offer. On a very incredibly minimal budget, this developer does succeed in distilling some pretty complex genres down to something that is highly accessible and very pleasant to play. They are mobile games initially, but the move to the Switch, which does strip the microtransactions out in each case, so you don't need to worry about that. That move from mobile to Switch does feel natural, and they do work quite comfortably as console titles, whether you're playing them on the Switch itself or on the big screen. Obviously they don't have 3D graphics and all that stuff, but they do look nice on a big screen as well. But what's really important here, and it is something that a lot of other micro developers working on JRPGs tend to lose control over, and I do mean most of the stuff that Kemco publishes in this case, the really important element is that Rideon games do have a character and personality all of their own. Across the scenarios, the characterization, the design elements, and the aesthetics, these games are not a personality-free bundle of eye-rolling cliches. They have a quality to them that really elevates them beyond that, which is perhaps not what you would expect when you look at it in screenshots, but it's definitely there when you start to play. They are not just content, they seem to have something more to them, which makes them a little bit more compelling than a lot of their peers that play in this kind of space. What I would love to do is to see that Rideon work with a bigger budget at some point to make a game that, you know, is perhaps a little bit more reflective of their creative intent, because I do think that this is a company that is punching well above its weight, and it has some genuine talent in there across pretty much the gamut of things. It's got some talented artists, it has some talented writers, and its level design and gameplay mechanics are very competent. So I get the feeling that if this company was given a bigger budget for something, they could come up with something pretty special indeed. So that's my hope. Whether they ever get there or not, I don't know. I mean, they have been around since 2004 and seem pretty much set in what they're doing now, so I would guess probably not. But you just never know. There might be a point where some new management comes into the company and decides to try and expand it and grow it and punch into a different space, but whoever knows. For now anyway, definitely keep an eye out. When you see the Rideon logo, then you know that you're getting a game that is going to be cut price in terms of its production, but it's actually going to offer something a little bit more than what you might expect on that basis. Anyway, that is enough for this video. Thank you as always for tuning in. I do have reviews for all of Rideon's games on the Nintendo Switch on digitallydownloaded.net, so please do go and check them out and let me know what you think. If you have been playing these games, let me know what you think. I'm always keen to hear from people who have got into these kinds of niche games and what they think about them. So yes, definitely keen on hearing from you. Please do click that like and subscribe button if you enjoy my videos, that way you won't miss any. And if you want to further support what I'm doing with this channel, please do consider backing me on Patreon. You can do so from just $1 a month, and that backing will actually really help me to continue to grow and expand what I'm doing here. Otherwise, have a great week for the rest of the week, or whatever time you're watching this video. Have a good day, and we will see you at the next one.